Elephants, leeches, and hope. Well, it kind of reminded me of maybe things you face in Washington and your members face, but that's what Jeff Corwin was talking about today in his keynote. What were some of your takeaways from this morning's sessions, maybe from Jeff's session on his work with animals and climate and so forth?
Well, this is our last day here at the Independent Show, but it was a great day because we did hear from Jeff Corwin, who does so much for promoting our environment and for us to take personal responsibility in that. And it was a great message for all of us at a family breakfast where kids as well as families could really embrace that message of doing all that we can in very tangible ways. So that was very, very cool. And then we kind of transitioned to a couple of other things, I guess, in terms of protecting the environment, so to speak, if we use that as a theme. We went right into our ACA Connects update panel, our mid-year report on current issues in Washington, D.C., where we're working in Washington to help our members promote their businesses and protect them from bad laws and regulations.
Well, and I want to talk to that one for a moment because it reminded me of the elephants thing. You know, you guys are faced with these huge conglomerates, and one of the topics that it seems like you made a lot of progress on is the work on retransmission consent. And the video you showed with Representative Scalise and Eshoo was remarkable in terms of the bipartisanship.
Well, it's been a long time coming, but we're very, very pleased to support Congressman Steve Scalise, very conservative Republican from Louisiana, and Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, very liberal member from Silicon Valley in California, which she represents in her district, coming together to create something called the Modern Television Act of 2019, which in its essence would ultimately repeal retransmission consent. This has been a long time coming for us because each and every year our members talk about the scourge of retransmission consent, rising prices to consumers, blackouts, threats of blackouts, and because of our work at ACA Connects, just in and of itself, as well as working with these members, we have finally come to a point together where they have agreed that it's time to really act and to put their name in a bipartisan way on a bill. So this bill will be part of the reauthorization of the satellite bill, which must be passed by the end of the year. I think it is going to be a cornerstone of that legislation that's passed because they're committed to seeing retransmission consent reform happening in 2019.
Well, and it was really hopeful from a standpoint of something working in Washington.
Without question, but it's sort of how Washington works too, right? It is the kind of thing where Washington does work on consensus, but it also works on education. I mean, we have been working with these lawmakers and others literally for more than a decade. They have been engaged. I mean, Anna Eshoo came to our summit about 5 years ago and basically said on stage, retransmission consent's a racket. So did Steve Scalise, where he's been on the stage to say these outdated rules need to go away. But it's the continual working relationship, building a stronger relationship, the data that shows that retransmission consent really does harm consumers and impact competition, and really the trust in the relationship that they have with us and us with them, that as we work with them, they realize that this is sound public policy to put their names on, and that's where we are.
Well, and telling the story, you've said this over and over and over again, but Patty Boyer's the new chairwoman, really tells her story, right?
It really makes a difference, and hopefully you have some video of Patty. She just phenomenally changed minds, I think. She testified in early June before the House Subcommittee on Communications and Technology in its stellar reauthorization, the satellite bill reauthorization hearing. And I think you could say that there was some skepticism about whether that bill, which does allow for some retransmission consent reform, should be reauthorized. Maybe we should just let it go away. The broadcasters were certainly pushing that because they want to keep maximum retransmission consent rights and leverage over cable operators and consumers. But Patty came in as a small cable operator from Poplar Bluff, Missouri with 3,000 customers and said, look, here are the facts. Here's what happens. Here's how far away my broadcasters are. Here's what they're charging me. Here's how I'm not making a dime on this, but consumers are paying for it. And to really push it back on these big corporate media fat cats to say there is a definite harm not only to my customers for what they have to pay for what broadcasters call free over-the-air TV, but to broadband, because the more Patty Boyer said she has to pay in retransmission consent, the less capital she has available to put into rural broadband in southeast Missouri. And that is an important fact. So she changed minds. I think she changed opinions, and now I think it also helped to encourage Congressman Scalise and Congresswoman Eshoo to move forward.
That is very powerful, and just as this was very powerful, the next sessions talked about cybersecurity.
You know, it was an issue we thought about as we were preparing for the show. We know that cyber is an issue that our members need to be really cognizant of, and we need to give it some focus. So we thought, okay, let's get kind of high level and let's get kind of down in the weeds here. And that's why having this morning Bill Connor, CEO of SonicWall, an international cybersecurity expert who has advised governments around the world, major corporations, financial institutions, other smaller businesses. Bill came in and basically said the threat is real and provided data to show where the threats are coming from, how fast they're coming at us, and to really pose some very serious questions where basically, controversial too when you look at what's happening, where he said, as far as 5G goes, Huawei should have no part of it whatsoever, and that's a big issue, and this is from a person who's seen the threat, from a nation state, using that technology to penetrate our network. So that overall umbrella of the threats was awesome. And then our more down-to-earth panel that was moderated by Tom Whitaker of Shentel, with Carrero, with Cisco, and really cool, the FBI here in Chicago, their cyber crimes division, to talk about what's actually happening, how they're working to keep the threats out, what our members can do, what kind of processes they should have in protecting their networks. It was eye-opening, certainly for me, but I think for everybody else. And I know a lot of people came to me and said, where can I get the slides for Bill Connor? Because this was incredible. So it's the kind of thing we want to do here, where we give something to our members maybe they weren't expecting, but also give them some takeaways that really, really make a difference for them and their businesses.
Well, Matt, you've been making a difference for a long time, and I appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you.
My pleasure. Great to be here, as always, at the Independence Show, 14th Annual, and we'll be back in San Antonio next year, July 26 to 29, 2020. JW Marriott Hill Country, San Antonio, Texas, for the Independence Show 2020, our 15th Annual.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks.